Morning everybody. Welcome to the Mayor and fellow councillors for this deliberations this morning. Welcome to the staff who will assist us, and welcome to everybody who is submitting, especially Megan McAtamaney, who is first up this morning. Welcome Megan, and we've read your submission, quite extensive submission.
I'm sorry about that.
No, fine, and you sent us some photos yesterday. I hope everybody watch them. So would you like to add anything to your submission? It's on page 28 of your dog control submission.
Sure. Well, firstly, good morning everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to have my say regarding the proposed changes out at the Ashburton Business Estate. The main reason I wanted to attend this morning was in case the council members needed any clarification regarding the contents of my submission. It was quite a long and in-depth submission, I do admit, but I just of the opinion that if it's worth doing, it's worth doing right. So you get one shot at it, basically. In my submission, I talk about the unpredictable nature of dogs and have experienced this many times with dogs off lead at the business estate. There'd be very few dogs out there that would have perfect recall given any situation they're faced with. And I'd like to share a couple of examples of this. The first example is by way of a short video. And it is very short. Get out of it. Where you go? Where you go? Where you go? Get out of it. This is why your dog should be on the lead. Okay, so while out walking in the business estate the other day, I took a photo of 3 people walking well ahead of me and my dog. Their dog was off the lead. Now, this is one of the photos that was emailed to you yesterday. I'd only managed to get my phone back in my pocket when I looked up and this dog had spotted my dog and was making a beeline for us. At this point, I made the decision to go off the path and down into the gully and up the other side before the dog could catch up with us. However, I didn't manage to get up the other side before it was there. I grabbed my little dog and juggled, taking my phone out of my pocket to capture the last bit before the owner finally managed to get there and secure her dog. The dog had zero recall. The owner was deep in conversation, by her own admission, and didn't realise her dog had come running over to us. Once she realised, she called and called, but it made no difference. I said to her next time I might have a 3-year-old with me who is frightened of dogs. What then? Second example, prior to the signs being erected at the business estate in 2019, I used to come across a lady and her young golden retriever. The retriever would be off lead. It was clear the lady was training the retriever on their daily walks, and it was also clear that she was working on the dog's recall. She would carry dog treats and would reward the dog every time it came back to her when called. I took special interest in this retriever because it appeared to have a very similar nature and look to a retriever that my family once had. I would see this lady and her retriever often and would stop and have a chat. On these occasions that I could tell that the training the owner was putting into the dog was really paying off, and I would remark on that to her. On one occasion, I was talking to the lady and her friend. The friend was telling me that a man had just told them that the retriever should be on a lead. The friend told me she said to him, "Show me the signs," bearing in mind this was before the signs went up. After the signs were erected, I saw the lady and her retriever less and less, and then never used to see them at all. The next time I saw the lady and her retriever out at the business estate was roughly in May of this year. This time the retriever was on a lead, walking very slowly, and it had a metal brace on one of its back legs. I queried the lady as to what had happened, and she said that they were walking off lead in the undeveloped area on the other side of JB Cullen Drive when the retriever started to chase a rabbit. Unfortunately, the outcome was the retriever chased it onto the road and was hit by a car, which resulted in a broken leg. The point here is this dog's recall, from what I had seen, was better than most, but no amount of recall training was going to stop this dog from chasing this rabbit, putting itself and the driver of the car in danger. You hear the term under effective control quite a lot and is referred to in council documents. Neither dog was under effective control in these examples. As per my submission, I don't agree to the proposal as it stands. However, if the council was interested in finding a safe solution for all, at the absolute minimum, the area would need to be fenced and it would need to be right away from current users. So not in the northeast Ashburton area currently proposed. I'd like to finish up by asking council members if they could confirm the number of submissions they received, specifically mentioning the proposed dog exercise area out at the Ashburton Business Estate, because I could only see 3, including mine, out of the 29 total submissions on the District Council website, and I thought I must have missed some, given the petition sent to Council in 2019 is recorded to have had 139 signatures on it. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. Councillors, you got any questions? Mr Mayor?
Thanks, Megan. Thanks for your submission, and thanks for the video showing that, highlighting that the dog wolf lead and what can potentially happen. It's probably more of an enforcement area, isn't it? The sign's up that said the dogs must be on the leads, and they're just not. But I don't know who's enforcing it. We're supposed to. We're obviously not.
Yeah.
So perhaps if we tightened up in that area, it might alleviate your concerns.
Yeah, absolutely. And I would just like to note at the moment that there's only one remaining sign out there, which doesn't help because the rest of them have been knocked over. There is one lone post out there whereby somebody's taken the actual sign off. But the only remaining one that I can see is out by Ashford Ave, by that entrance.
Okay.
So it's just an ongoing thing. I don't know whether it's something that you need to think outside the box as far as what to do with the signs. I know you have concrete bollards and other areas that maybe need to be out there with the signs in the middle of them. I don't know.
Yeah, thanks very much for your submission.
Yeah.
We'll think about it.
Yeah.
Councillor Mackay?
Good morning, everyone. Mr. Chairman, am I allowed to ask a question about the fence that was mentioned in Megan's submission?
It depends who you want to
To you,
ask the
to
question
you.
to.
Do you?
Not at this stage. Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. Thanks, Megan. I'm a dog owner and I've got a dog that loves chasing after rabbits, so I walk him on a leash. But we do go to the fenced off Methven Dog Park quite often where he can just run away and have a lot of fun. But I'm just, where do you think a fenced off area is going to be the best area?
Out there?
Yeah, do you think there is you need to have a fenced off area out there, or are the other 2 dog parks in town sufficient?
Probably my initial thing is that you provide enough already. However, if there was a need for something in that location, because it is on the northern side of Ashburton, then, as I said, the absolute minimum, it would need to be fenced. There is an area, I don't know what you've got it earmarked for, as you are coming from the area that you had in your proposal, heading to Ashford Ave. You go through, you've got a fenced area there, and it's sort of undeveloped. I think you normally take hay, someone does round bales of hay or something like that from it. There's an area there, and that would mean then people can park on Ashford Ave, and they can get out of their cars and go straight into that area, rather than have to then walk along the concrete path to get to an area, because I just don't think that people will put them on a lead to get to that area, take them off the lead, and then put them back on the lead to get back out to their cars. I just don't think it's I spend enough time out there now to know that that's just not going to happen.
Okay.
There is also an area, or there certainly used to be, I've had sort of quite a long association with the business park because I worked for a number of years for a company that were one of the first to build out there. And so there used to be an area on the other side, in behind rural, on the other side of the sort of the built-up vegetation area, and it was just sort of no man's land next to the railway line. I don't know if that's still there. That could be an option, but just somewhere away from current users. It's just it would not work the way that it is now, or the way that it's proposed, in my opinion.
Councillor Lovett?
I'm just going to ask, if you want it policed more, the officers out there looking, Is there a particular time of the day which is more problematic when dog owners go out? Is it morning or evening or all through the day? Or when do they normally walk their dogs out there? I mean, 'cause I don't,
It can be all
day.
Yeah, all different times. I'm out there. To be fair, I'm out there either with my dog, without my dog, or on my horse even, and I see. It's just
All randomly through.
Yeah, random times really. Yeah.
No further questions? Thank you very much for your submission.
Okay.
We'll be deliberating later on this morning, including your submission. Thank you for the
Okay.
time to come and
Thanks for your time.
Okay. I'd like to welcome David and Jackie Howden, if you've both come up to the microphones. Page 21, councillors, for the submission. We've all read your submission, so if you want to enlarge on it or emphasise some points.
Right, we'll make it pretty short because this is not what I do usually. Originally, I thought there was no dogs up there because of the stock and that from the landowners. And all the land surrounding Lake Camp now is owned by DOC, and you actually allowed dogs on DOC land, just not at the huts. So, and all the stock's gone now because it's DOC land. And I think if you just put a couple of rules in, like either contained on your section or on a lead, it should be fine.
Just basically the same rules as are in town, really.
Yep.
That's all we're asking for, just exactly the same as in town.
Yeah, even if they made the beach fronts dog free with the kids in the swimming and that, like, I mean, that wouldn't be too much hard to enforce, I wouldn't have thought. Or minimum, like just put here, even if you gave it a trial for a couple of years and we come back in a couple of years and see if there's any submissions against it.
And there are, like, people that get worried about the dogs' mess and stuff like that, but we have horses and things like that going through the town and they leave a bigger mess than what a dog does. So I don't really think that's,
And you don't
you
see
know.
horse owners with wee bags, do you? You see a lot of dog owners being responsible.
Yeah. And
Yeah,
I think all hut holders that want to take their dogs up there will make sure that they tidy up after their dogs because we actually want them there. So, yeah.
Yeah.
That's,
that's basically it. I mean, even if you wanted someone up there to police it, we're there half the time. I wouldn't mind going and speaking to people if they're out of control. Yeah.
Right, thank you. Any questions? Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I've got a question. I thought that the reason why they didn't have you weren't allowed dogs up at the lakes was because of the bird life.
Crested
Yeah.
Grebes?
Crested
yeah,
Grebes.
well,
Is
there's
that-
two lakes, so there's two lakes.
Yes,
so
yes,
if
I'm
the
aware of
dogs
that.
are in one area,
Yep.
or we'll all say are not allowed in an area, then there won't be a problem
Yeah.
because the birds
Couple
keep
of-
nesting in the same place.
So the
Oh, that's
birds
true,
are
right.
over at Clear Nest at the top of
Yep.
Clearwater or around Clearwater.
Yep.
And then, okay.
Couple of
Yeah, well,
things
there's a
with that
couple
there.
of things with, yeah.
If your dog's on a lead, it's not going to get the crested crebe.
Yep.
And the crested crebes aren't even a native. They're drifted over from Aussie.
So,
And we all
Well,
like,
you did cut all the
we
willow
all like
trees
to beat up on
down.
the Aussies, don't we?
and then supplementary, if
Yes.
it's okay. So then the hut holders, I can imagine, would be responsible because
Yes.
that's
Yes.
good. What about the visitors?
Well, they're down the
yeah.
other end. They're not really anywhere near that area where they camp, the Freedom Campers.
Yeah.
No, so I'm not just talking about Freedom Campers, but the people in the campground as well.
Well, they're
Yeah.
near the huts, so
But
that's
they're-
not near the birds.
And they're actually allowed dogs on all the dock land which surround Clearwater and Emma. It's only the area in the huts and the camp that you're not allowed the dogs.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah.
Mr Mayor.
Yeah, thanks for your submission. If you had dogs on leads, you need rules, and you said that they would need to be policed. We've just heard from the previous submitter that people don't adhere to them; they just let them go, and they cause
Yeah.
trouble. So
But it's the same as in town, isn't it?
exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do we make a rule that nobody has dogs anywhere?
You know, we made the rule the dogs on leads.
Yeah.
And other places you can let them free range, but
Yeah.
in certain places.
Yeah.
That's what we're getting at today. The other question I had was the Hut Holders Association. We've got a submission from them. Joan Healy signed it on behalf of the Hut Holders Association with the contrary view to yours, as in no dogs.
Yep.
How does that work with you?
Well, it doesn't, because we're obviously
well,
sitting on the opposite side.
She's submitted, I believe, on your behalf.
Who?
No, that would be on the hut holders.
Yeah.
You're not a hut holder.
I'm not, yes,
Where
I'm a
we
hut
are
holder,
hut
but that
holders.
would be the committee,
Yeah.
not the individual. I mean,
Yeah.
like,
We come here as an individual, not as...
Yep, that's
as-
exactly right.
yeah.
yeah. And I think
Yeah.
there's been
And
some
there's
other
a lot of
submissions about
individuals.
dogs at Lake Camp too. I've
Yeah.
talked to two
See,
people
as,
who've put
as
two in.
hut holders, we did not know that that had even gone in.
Right, that's my
Yeah.
question. Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
So it wasn't on all the hut holders,
No.
otherwise we would have disagreed to that.
Yep.
It was just like some things get emailed, like the submissions for this. We didn't get the email for that
From the Hut Holders Association.
from the hut holders because they know that we want dogs.
And you
So-
could probably, well, you're best to follow that up as to
Yeah.
why they're not talking.
Yeah, well,
They're
Well,
coming in
that's
on
just
your
the way
behalf,
it is. We
but-
don't really
That's
worry
just
about
life,
that.
Neil.
That's just life. We don't care about that. But yeah,
Okay, thanks for clarification. Great.
yeah.
Councillor Rawlinson?
Thank you. Mayor stole my thunder because that was what my discussion was around too, was I was going to ask you if the hut holders have actually discussed it in a meeting.
They may have,
No.
we're not on the committee.
And you're not members, so
So that would have just been the handful of people that are on the committee deciding what happens up there without asking all the hut holders.
so
Yeah.
in general, when you're there, say all there at New Year or Christmas time,
Oh.
do you ever get into conversations with others about this topic?
Yeah, it's
Oh,
probably
well-
split 50-50, I would have said up there.
Yeah, yeah.
There's people like dogs, people don't.
And there's
Holden
people that live up
Falcon
there.
argument, isn't it?
There's people that live up there that live at the lake, so they seem to be able to say what happens and what doesn't happen. So
Thanks for your
even though I
submission.
think you're not supposed to live up there. Yeah.
Thank you.
Councillor Cameron?
Just a quick question. You mentioned that perhaps an outcome might be that the dogs stay in the sections.
Yeah.
Do all the people that have, dogs have fences around?
Well, if you wanted your dog, then you would put a fence up.
Yeah.
That's what I would
We're in a
think.
very
Yeah.
good position. Our
Ours is
ours is
totally
fenced.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
So
want a dog, you meet the rules.
yeah.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There is also the concern that dogs, even if they're not close to bird life, the mere presence of them in the area can.
Yeah,
Would
I would have
children,
thought.
noisy children and
Yes,
climbing
yeah.
trees and stuff like that not be the same?
I would have thought wild cats are more of an issue,
Yeah.
and ferrets are more of an issue
Yeah.
than dogs on bird life.
And one other question I have is some people have dogs that might frighten people more than other dogs,
Yep, there's lots of
How
dogs,
would,
Caroline.
do you have any suggestions on how we would manage?
Well, how
No.
do you manage that in town?
Fair comment, yeah,
Yeah.
fair comment.
Yeah.
Thank you, yeah, thanks.
Councillor Lovett?
I'm just going to ask, is the village itself got a fence around it?
No.
So it is all completely open, even down the bottom end to the lake?
There's a fence round,
Docklands fenced off,
yeah.
not between like camp and the village. It's not fenced.
It's not fenced.
No.
I was just thinking if dogs were in there, they'd sort of be contained in an area of the village, not able to roam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No.
No further questions? Well, thank you, David and Jackie, for your submissions. We'll be deliberating on it later on this morning.
Thank you.
So thanks for coming in and giving your submission.
Do consider it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We've only got a Labrador too, by the way. It's nothing big or vicious.
You might want to remind councillors.
Yes, I
when
do.
some of them are not speaking.
Please, councillors, shift your mics to where you speak, please, because a lot of you are speaking to the submitter, and it's not coming into our broadcast at all. Our next submitter isn't until 9:40, so we could perhaps start on on your draft. Summary of feedback. Dog control bylaw and policy summary of feedback. So we start on page 5. Oh, can they not sit here? They can sit here and listen to us, can't they? Thought they were allowed to sit and listen.
Yeah, they are.
Mr. Carroll.
Yeah, no.
Yep.
Just leave it for now. Thank you. Did you tell them to go? Carol, did you tell them to go? No, hell no. No, they thought they had to start.
Oh, okay.
No, you're welcome.
Okay.
If you don't want to. No, hell no.
Righto, councillors, if you go to the summary of the feedback, page 5. Submitters who support the draft control bylaw and policy as presented. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4 there. Any further comments? There's a staff response. Adair Brewerton, Carol Hall, Tessa McIntosh and Marie Quinn. Next one, no comments. Heather Cullymore. Oh, Councillor Lovett.
I'm just going back to, I like the submitter thinking, you know, we do need more dog areas, exercise areas, parks. I think, you know, going forward in the future, we need to have a look at it because there seems to be more and more dogs in the town and more problems. And I think, you know, it's an area we could look at in the future when we're planning and stuff to make sure we do provide for dogs.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that's what we're doing right now. So we are proposing a new one here, and there's another one that isn't in here that I think's been proposed and started by residents in Rakaia. So the aim is to gradually increase them.
Councillor Mackay.
Are we back to the Cullimore one?
Yes.
Question is this council planning to put up a dog-proof fence in the Ashburton Business Estate area that's planned in the future? It's not clear here in the staff answer. It just says that thanks to submitter for supporting dog parks are large fenced areas. So there's no fence there. There's only 3 fences there at the moment. Is the fence along the path going to be the bit along the path going to be fenced or not? And if so, what sort of fence?
Through you, Mr. Chairman, we were not proposing to fence it. We were proposing this as a dog exercise area rather than a dog park. If you wanted it fenced, the only issue would be the budget, because we don't have a budget. The fencing for dog parks is quite expensive because around the bottom you have to put fine mesh or the wee dogs hop through the gaps. So that's entirely your call as to what you want, but we certainly were not proposing to fence it.
Mr. Mayor.
Megan talked about the area where the hump was and the natives, which is probably what we call the bund. Could you use a bund area for dog exercising? Is that a legitimate or a legal use of a bund? Could you use it for that?
Yes, you could.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it serves no other purpose
No.
bar being a bund. Yeah. Yeah. So it's something to consider. Yeah.
Well, that was really what we were proposing.
It is. Is it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
Councillor Mackay.
Which bund are we talking about? Are we talking about the railway siding bun, or are we talking about the bun in the proposed site?
The bund and the proposed site, through you, Mr. Chairman.
Could we
Let's just
get a photo up on the wall of the bund, because we're working on this thing and it's hard to flick backwards and forwards to diagrams and reading submissions at the same time.
Are you able to do that, Mel?
Or do you want to go to the next submission and then you'll have time to do that?
Yeah, yep.
Mr Chair, are we going through the submissions page by page, are we? Is that how we're doing it?
We're going to postpone it right now because Ian and Maxine Watson have arrived, so once it'll give Mel time perhaps to look. So if you change now from the dog control to open spaces, to your submissions, page 8. Everybody, page 8. Welcome Ian and Maxine. We're just everybody's getting their tablets. We're changing from dog control to open spaces. So just once everybody will have read your submissions, but it's just to have them in front of them is good. Well, I welcome you too. If you've got anything to add or emphasise what you say in your submission.
Yeah, that'd be good. I'll just a wee bit. I'd just like to say good morning and have life be healthy. I won't say who we are because you introduced us, Stuart, so that's good. I've just made a few notes that I'll read briefly. They're not much, but I'll just give you a wee bit of an outlook of before I get in to go through the draft part of the bylaws that we have some concerns of. We are third generation users and our families are fourth, fifth and sixth users of our open spaces in our district. We're very passionate about our beautiful environment. We have many recreational pursuits that we enjoy doing in these wide open spaces that keeps us young, healthy and fit. And we like the council's motto, more people, more active, more often. We have read the Open Space Strategy 21626. The Open Space Strategy illustrates some magnificent photos of the vast outdoor spaces of our district has to offer. The snow-capped mountains, the rolling tussock basins, the blue high country lakes and the mighty braided rivers, the Rakaia, Ashburn and Rangitata that flow from the glaciers through the gorges down over the plains to the Pacific Ocean. It is these areas that we use and highly value for our many recreational pursuits. It's important to us and our families that we continue to have unrestricted access to these outstanding areas. We do not support the draft Open Space B bylaws as written because it is unclear to us and we need assurances that any new bylaws will not restrict our walking and vehicle access to these areas. We have difficulties in what is the meaning of open space of all the areas of land and water that the council owns, manages, and the land that is vested in or under the control of the council. This land and water should be identified on maps and be available to the public. The Open Space Strategy 21626, page 45, and I've got a copy of it here. We've read it and tried to understand it. This is the one here with the beautiful photos of our mountains and that. Open space means, for the purpose of this strategy, open space is an area of land, water around or managed by ADC that offers unrestricted access to the public for the purpose of amenity, recreation or enjoyment to the people in the district. On page 9, bylaws, those bylaws will say it covers parks, public gardens and also public places. I'm not sure whether this does extend out to mean public spaces as well, or spaces as well. This is where it gets a wee bit confusing for us, and we'd like to try and get some clarification on just what and how far these bylaws could go or mean to us. Open Space Strategy 21626, page 23, current open spaces the following maps identify it says all areas of open space as defined by the strategy. And there's maps in there, mine's like coloured, but I think that they're marked in green, and it has maps in there of, 2 pages there of Ashburton, Hines, Tynwald, Meth and Require. A real question is this all the maps that the bylaws covers? Because it depends how you read into the open space areas of it. Is it our big wide open spaces of the district like I described and you described in this document here that has these magnificent photos in? You mean it's got some tremendous photos in there, and the areas we all use. We had some trouble trying to come to grips with the description of these open spaces. I then went into the Ashburn District Plan and had a look to see what it said about open spaces. And when I went in there, it identified open spaces at the South Require huts, the Hakatree huts, the Rangitata huts and their camping grounds. Also identified 4.49 acres of hectares of the council-owned land at Ashton Beach. We also have a map of the Ashburn District Council Lake Clearwater that shows land owned and managed by ADC. So I had some difficulties just trying to try to see that. We went to the council, we had 2 or 3 approaches to the council, and we had some trouble, and then we got to talk to Colin Whittlebourne, and he was very good. He gave us quite a good overlook of these things and sort of assured us that we did not really have too many concerns. We should not have too many concerns, but we still felt it wasn't clear and it was a little bit confusing. So we do want to just go through a couple of bylaws in there in a minute just to try and tell you what we're saying. So what I'm saying here, I've found some more. So is there any more land in open spaces owned by the council that the new bylaws could relate to? Because it's pretty important that we understand what that is and where it is. Because when I made my submission there, I was really, really concerned that I only want to go across these short stretches of council-owned land to get out into the bigger wide open spaces, you mean, from where I live and where I own some properties and that, and I just don't want to be restricted by not being able to drive my vehicle from here to there. And as Stuart would know, a round trip for me and Maxine fishing, like Stuart's brother Graham, we do 20 k's in the morning going fishing, and we do another 20 in the evening. And then we must probably do 10 k's of walking in between that. So, you know, I bought a motorbike in 2007, did 20,000 k's on it. That was like how many trips is that to Chicago? 40. You know, 2013 I bought a little Polaris, done 500 or 600 hours on it. 5 hours to Chicago. How many hours have I been sitting on the seat of that thing getting to my open spaces? And Stuart will tell you, I'm a big user of open spaces. I don't sit on the seat for long when I'm out there. I love the environment. I love getting around, just like the rest of my family. So that's what's brought us here. I think we'll just go on to page 9 of the draft open bylaws, and I'd like to just only take a couple of minutes just to go through and just tell you what we're concerned about. Page 9, and I'll just read it. Without the written permission of council or an authorised officer, this is about water, so it's not quite about access, but I want to start. I did mention water in my first little submission. Without the prior written permission of council or an authorised officer, no person, either personally or through any agent under their control through omission may remove, destroy, damage, deface, obstruct, disturb or otherwise interfere. That's 7.1.1. The bit I have a wee bit of concern about is go down to V1, which I think 6, and it talks about not allowed to destroy flora, fish, birds and fungi. I'm just a bit concerned. I know where that may relate to is in your gardens in town or your reserves and the open spaces in town, but the wider meaning in that could mean someone was not really meant to take or kill a fish in our district. I'm not sure whether that could relate to that.
Just a second, Ian. Some councillors are having trouble.
Yes.
If you go to your open spaces
Which one are you
bylaw,
looking at?
Yeah,
it's on their tablet.
Okay, so we've got it.
sorry.
Number 7, damage and
You're quick ahead of us, Ian.
Okay.
They've all got a copy of it.
Yeah,
Yes,
Okay,
yes,
this
we've
one.
got a copy.
Okay,
Yep.
okay.
yeah, this one.
Well, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Just someone
Sorry,
had.
that's all right. I was
Yep.
trying to be quick, so I didn't waste
No,
time.
you're right. We have with a tablet. We haven't got a printed version, so we have to
Slow
close that
down a
one
bit
and
there.
click over to
So,
the other one.
will I start again then?
Yeah. No, we're
Oh,
right.
no, no, it's just that because I'm a fisherman, and I love fishing, I love birds, I love all that natural outdoor environment. And I used to be a real king salmon fisherman, and because of the fishing in the district is in such a bad state and just about virtually collapse, you know, Maxine and myself stopped fishing in 2015. We haven't actually caught any salmon or fished the salmon in the district since then, because we're pretty passionate about the salmon fishery and the trout fisheries and that, and we want them to recover. But this one here, to me, just needs a bit of a clarification. I may not be reading it quite right, but if you go back to the top, it does give the officer of a council the authority perhaps to allow those fish to be removed or to be killed. I don't know, but I just wanted to make the point on that one about the fish there. So you wise people will see whether I'm right or wrong, and hope you'll give it some consideration to get the wording right. So that's what I wanted to say there. If we go over to the next page, page 10, the 7.16, permit or cause wastage of water or permit any water tap to flow for a longer period than may be reasonably required for the filling of utensils, drinking, cooking or washing water. I can see the benefit of that bylaw. I just wanted to clarify it, but the first part of it says permit or cause wastage of water. And we in town, we like to not waste water, but it's been one of my things that I've most probably reported to some of the councillors who were here before, that I'm a wee bit sick of driving around the county and these farmers that don't know how to set up irrigators and keep letting them running onto our roads. And I don't think me and Stuart have many, Councillor Wilson would have too many arguments about that. We know water damage roads, and I don't know how much, what's the word, how much benefit you get from doing that. So I'd like the council, if we have to, not, what's the word, if we have to just use the minimum amount of water to wash our utensils, I don't think that it should be wasted, and I think the council needs to be more vigilant about stopping that sort of practice of water. Now, most probably, that's what I'd say there. I wanted to go to 9 vehicles, 9.1. This is really the main concern about why I objected to the bylaws. No person shall operate, ride or drive, park or utilise any vehicle other than bicycles or scooters on or in open space except in areas cleanly signposted and notified as being available for such use. Now I have a property at 369 Range Road. For me to come out of that property, I've got to go onto council land. I've done it for years. I've got to go across council land, and then I've got to go into dock land, and then I've got to go into Lynn's land, and then I can go out to the big wide open spaces that I enjoy. But do we need a sign there at the gate for me to go there? I haven't had to have a sign there yet. Is that what it means, or am I wrong? Is there another interpretation? And yeah, I think they should, all the other places I go to, if no person shall operate, ride or drive, and this is why I'm here, are we not going to be allowed to do that in open spaces? Are we only allowed to be able to walk? because I explained how much we valued in what we've done for so long, that I just think that there could just give the council the right or the opportunity to say no vehicles. Only what they say at the top, bicycles and it was bicycles, yeah.
Scooters.
And scooters, yeah. So anyway, when it goes over, that's the first part of it. When it goes on to the next bit, no person shall ride or drive any vehicle in open space at a speed in excess of the speed indicated on the appropriate sign displayed in the area where the vehicle has been driven or ridden. Where no speed limit has been signposted, no person will ride in the open space at a speed greater than 20 k's. Well, 20 k's is pretty good in most places. My little vehicle's registered to go on the road and to go in the open spaces, but I'm restricted to driving it at 40 k's if I'm on a public road. There's two or three things I like to say. If I was on one of our adventures out in the river and we're way up the Rangitata fishing there, and Stuart will know, you got a big salmon just a bit into twilight when it's the best time and the best chance you get him hooked on your line and you're playing him, you don't want to lose him, and it takes half an hour to get in and the light's just about gone. You know, I've had made there's been some tracks and things I operate my vehicle on there when I want to get to places quick. I want to get down the river and get across the river crossing. I don't want to do 20 k's. I want to do 40 k's. And what I'm saying to this is that it also can have some life-threatening situations that I've been involved in that over all my years of being on the river, where I've actually most probably saved lives because I've been Johnny on the spot and I've had a vehicle and that's how I got there. And I'll give you one instance. I'll give you 10, but I'll just give you one instance. Right? When salmon fishing is pretty hot, it's pretty competitive, we all want to be there, and every beach that we Maxine have or I've had in my life, there's always up an hour and a half before daylight, and I always want to be there early, and a lot of times I want to be there if it's around the river mouth. I want to have a bit of a look round before I start fishing so I don't make a mistake and I get myself in the best position for where I want to be. This morning I got up, and I was early and I was keen. I drove out to Rangitata river mouth and I walked up onto the shingle bank and left my motorbike there. I looked over the shingle bank and here was a boat on the water. And I was a bit confused and dazed and everything. And all of a sudden I realised this boat was in the middle of the Rangitata mouth. So I thought, okay, now what's going on here? So it was just instinct. I just took off, ran out in the middle of that route. It was pretty smart, got hold of this boat and I had hold of it and I was struggling, you mean? But there was two people in the boat and they're floating out the mouth and the breakers were only 10 or 15 metres away. And then when I was struggling, I looked down the side of the boat and here was the guy in the water lying down the side of the boat. So all of a sudden I had this situation where I had these two people in the boat and one on the side and me struggling to get hold of it. But anyway, as luck was, I got them out, still dark, and that was it. But if I had to walk out there and got there later, what would happen to those people? Just a wee instance I wanted to tell you about. As Stuart will know, my brother Russell, you know, saved one or two guys in his life, didn't he, Stuart? You know, the Baxter boys that went down fishing, Ollie Baxter, come home, Russell saved his life. You know, I don't know where we drove there, but all our life we've actually, when vehicles come, we started with boats, but then it was vehicles of some description we drove to the river. So I know there's need to be some restrictions, and I'm happy having restricted spaces or an area to go or runs, particularly like the Hackett 3 one or the Ashton Beach one where I was involved in. But it was a management plan and we didn't want to get shut out of our traditional areas down on that beach. And you know, that has happened there, and I'll just mention it here because I got an opportunity. It might be a bit to do with open spaces, but I participated in the plan, went through all the workshops, had some quite good controversies and everything. And we did had to resign that we would be restricted on some of the areas we could run a vehicle, but we did have a compromise to allow controlled four-wheel drive motorbikes and that down the shingle bank on a track that was most probably signposted away from the birds and that's okay. But the sign goes down there now, and I don't know whether someone else has got an agenda, but it's certainly not the sign on the plan that the community agreed to in the concept B plan for Ashton Beach. And when we went down there, and we've gone there all our life, for families, I'm a third generation there, my dad and granddad went before me, took my great grandson down there the other day, my daughter Maxine, and the posts and that just are discriminating. They personally don't let only let slim people and people that can walk through, that don't allow for mountain buggy things and that. But anyway, that didn't stop us. We got round it and over it, and there, and we had a magnificent time out there. And our little fella, it was a pretty big educational time for him. We told him where the birds were, and he was going chirp, chirp, chirp like this. So, 2-year-old, they learn quick. So that's the crunch of my submission there, Mr. Chairman. I did also talk about freedom camping, and because things have gone a bit sideways with the environment, the things I love and that, we've got a couple of holiday homes. In our retirement, we decided to buy a motorhome, so we had a bit more freedom. We went away travelling and that, and we don't use much in our local area, but when we go to some of these other places, we get these silly restrictions. You know, they think that we people are not what's the word? We're not. I'm not sure. We're in the common sense anyway. So if I want to go fishing down on the canal at Twizel, and I can't leave my camper there after 10 o'clock at night, so I can't fish through the night because I'm going to make a fence. I'm going to toilet outside, or I'm going to throw my rubbish out or do something, which is the absolute opposite. We pick it all up that the other people do. So if I want to use my motorhome camper van around this Ashburn district and go to things, don't make silly restrictions like that. You know what I mean? They put everyone in the same category as though we pollute the place. So you know, we love fishing, hunting, walking, trapping, all those things. If I want to go up to my motorhome and park it at the gates of one of these things in their big open spaces in the Hecatory Conservation Park, I want to be able to leave it there without getting a notice or a ticket on it to say I violated the bylaws or the freedom camping things in the district. So when you're doing those, I just want to have my little say about that. I don't think there's anything else I want to say other than if I'm reading it right, wouldn't it be better to put a sign up you can't go somewhere than to have to put a sign up to say you can't? I don't know. I think that might be a better option. I spent a lot of time at Lake Clearwater. You know, when we had a talk with Colin the other day, I said, you know, I want to get down there, Colin, how do I get there? And he said, well, there's only actually one road there, like that. The rest of the roads are Clearwater, and where I want to go down my windsurfing place to park and that. I said to him, other people, I got unofficial signs and things down there, and I said that if there's any signs in any area, I think they should have the council logo on them to say they are council signs. That any other signs, I think people, I would just ignore, to be quite honest. And we've got some of them at Rangatata. They're on the trees, they're parked up. I don't know who puts them there. But I think that's about all we've got to say. Does that make sense? But as you said before, I've spoken to you people before, and you know we're pretty passionate about our environment, and we love using it. We've had heaps of events since we retired in 2017. So it's you know, I'm most probably way over 70 now. I still want to use them. Still want to stay fit. And
thanks very much, Ian and Maxine. Pretty comprehensive. You've certainly studied it. I will say, as far as water on the roads, if you do a snap, send and solve, if you know that, you have to take a photo. It's
Been there, done that.
Oh, we've got heaps of them.
There's still, because it's a $500 fine.
Well, it's saying in here it's a $20,000 fine in this bylaw ones. I could give them to you, but I got some photos of some pretty notable people in this county. I'm a bit reluctant to make them public. It would embarrass a few people. I've got them. They're on my computer. Mixon's got them on my phone. I could show you now, but some of them are pretty damning. Some of them are on State Highway 1.
You send them into our roading team, send them into the council, because the roading team are very mindful that the damage that persistent irrigator does to sealed roads. So, councillors, got any questions? Well, thank you very much for Russell and Ian and Maxine. You've certainly covered a lot of ground, so we'll be going into decision making a bit later on. We have to go through everybody else's submissions first. So thanks.
Thank you very much for the opportunity, but as I said, I scribbled the things down for a start because I was unsure and unclear, and I thought, whilst I had those feelings, I just did want to come and give the opportunity to have a say. So thank you very much again. Sure.
Certainly made the most of your opportunity. Good. Thanks very much.
Well, I'll just get out off there and start enjoying what I enjoy.
Righto, councillors, we'll go back to the... Righto, we'll have 10 minutes and then we'll continue on with the dog control where we left off before. How do you switch that off? Welcome back, everybody. We'll continue on dog control bylaw and policy with submissions. We were on page 5. We hadn't finished with Heather Cullimore's submission. These are submitters who supported the dog control bylaw and policy as presented. In the bottom of the page, those that supported the continued prohibition of dogs at Lake Clearwater and Camp.
If we could just go back
Mr.
to
Mayor?
Heather Cullimore's, we're going to get a map up of where that park is, because there's a proposal there for it to have a name, that park area. And I do know Tom, and I didn't know he wasn't with us anymore because he visited me a year or so ago, because he was the one of the people who, with Heather, did this, what do you call it, the, not submission, the, all the signatures, what do you call them? Petition, that's it. Yeah, he was, that he's very passionate about it, so if it was going to be an area set aside, if it did have a name, then that might be a nice suggestion, but. Yep.
You could perhaps explain where the Bund area is, or the...
Okay, so this is the proposed area here, and I've got some close-up images. So there's a pathway along this edge.
It's a really big area.
Yep, so this is a raised area. That's the pathway that I pointed out on the previous image. And that's just another view of it.
Lane, you got a question?
Yeah, that's an open space in space, isn't it? It's not in section what will be sold in years to come.
No.
It is part of the swales, yeah.
Mr. Mayor? Well, sorry, Councillor Mackay?
So just so I've got it absolutely clear in my mind, Mr. Chairman, people walking along that path will be in the same space as unleashed dogs. Have I got that right?
It doesn't have to.
Sorry?
It doesn't have to. There's no fence, yeah.
Jane?
Yes, at dog parks and designated dog parks and designated dog exercise areas, dogs are allowed to be off leash provided they are still under effective control.
Right. Thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
So this area here is proposing for dogs to be off the leash. Yep.
Correct.
Right.
Councillor Brown?
Could we back to the big overview part itself? One further back, I think. No, the first one. That one there. So that path comes all the way through to Company Road. Yeah, and just a question: is there a possibility that you make it only the dog park on the left-hand side, looking from here, on the left-hand side of the path? Is that a possibility?
You mean fencing that off? Or?
Fencing it so people can still walk past it without having dogs running loose. So the part where the dogs can run is off the pathway.
I would have to ask my colleagues that because it's a while since we went there and checked this out, and my memory isn't good enough to be able to tell you whether that's workable or not without me going back. But Mel or Rick may be able to answer that, or possibly even Bert. Not Bert.
One of you like to comment?
Thank you, through the chair. When we visited this area, we were looking predominantly at what could be used as an exercise area. The problems we were having were, as you will know, were dogs being exercised at large in the industrial area. And so we were looking at a compromise to that, or an answer to that. And this was why we looked at it as purely an exercise area. To have it as a dog park, that would need further discussion and a big budget.
Councillor McMillan? Oh, Mr Mayor?
So if people wanted to use that area for their dogs and they drove, or how would they drive up Company Road to get there? And if they did go up Company Road or whatever road, where would they park their vehicles while they exercise their dogs?
Through you, Stu, on the road there, on Company Road.
There's room there for that?
There is. We would need to look at whether we could make that perhaps a bit better like what we did at the Methven Dog Park.
Right.
We'd have to have a look at that, and you'd need signage because you'd at the moment you'd flash past it before you realised you were there.
Yep.
But with what Rick was saying, that is correct. There was that petition that came in wanting that industrial area to be able to have dogs off leash, but there's just so many opportunities for conflict, and we really did get a lot of complaints and a lot of incidents of dogs rushing, people being knocked off bikes. As one submitter mentioned earlier, a lot of people have got no idea about keeping their dog under effective control, and if it's in an area like that where there's all sorts of conflicting uses, whereas we felt that this was much more open and less likely to have areas of conflict. So rather than just say, no, we're not having anything in the northeast, where we were coming from was trying to meet a demand, but in an area where there'd be less opportunity for disaster, basically.
Yep. So we have people out there now doing things they shouldn't be doing with dogs, as the submitter's been telling us. So how do we police that? Or how do we police that? First question.
As you know, our animal control service is contracted out, and they do police that. And when we sometimes you get a spate of complaints about something happening in a particular area. When that happens, the contractor is asked to do additional patrols, to get out of vehicles, speak to people. That is what they've done up in the business estate. They've issued infringement notices, but you can't be there 24/7. And I don't know what we do about people stealing the signs. That is an ongoing issue, and I think more recently people have also been leaving bags of dog poo. I'm not sure why, but that's some sort of a civil disobedience sign, perhaps. I'm not sure.
So do the dog patrol people do regular patrols down there?
They do.
Randoms?
They do, and Argyle Park, all the known potential hotspots.
Thanks.
Councillor McMillan?
I'm just thinking about the fencing idea, but I think in the interim this is probably a good solution, but that we just sort of be really mindful that in the future we might need to have a fenced area in that location so that everyone's probably kept safe and the dogs are kept safe.
Councillor Ronson?
And I just think, to me, it brings up the difference between a dog exercise area, which is what we're looking at here, which is like freedom, versus a dog park, which is fenced and has, some controls around it. I think what we were trying to provide is simply an exercise area, and unfortunately it's always the naughty dogs that spoil it for the good dogs.
Naughty owners.
Naughty owners, that's right.
What, everybody satisfied with that? If we move on to the submitters at the bottom of the page, those that did not support the bylaw. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Ardy, Jardine, Allen, Sam and Duan. They've given their reasons why not, and the council replied that they do their best to monitor and enforce compliance. They suggested all dogs should be compulsorily microchipped. Well, that's part of the urban dog registration. That's the law. Yes. Apart from rural working dogs, all other dogs have got to be microchipped. No comments from councillors?
I do.
Oh, Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I'm going up to the bottom of page 5, submitters that support the lake, Clearwater and camp prohibitive areas, and I think the Mayor brought up before that the Lake Clearwater Hut Holders Association had put in a submission saying that they didn't want the dogs up there, and you would think that they would be representing the majority of the hut holders up there, so I think we kind of need to take their stances as being a view of the majority, but it didn't seem that with our
Can I just...
other submitter. Yes.
Just one thing that I could add to what Councillor McMillan said. Some of us earlier in the year went to Geraldine to meet with Doc and to talk about a number of issues of common interest, and included in that was we wanted to get some consistency between their prohibited areas and ours, because it's very confusing for the public. We weren't on the same page, and it got pointed out to us by members of the public that they'd looked on our website and seen you weren't allowed, but then on another bit on Doc you were allowed. So with Doc you were allowed to walk around a walkway, but then you came to an area where you couldn't get back to civilization without going across a bit where we had prohibited dogs. It was somewhere at the Ashburton Lakes. Was it between Camp and Clearwater or Lake Emma? I can't remember Lake Emma. So Mel coordinated it so that now we're aligned with the dock areas, and that way there won't be confusion for the public. Don't know whether you want to add to that, Mel.
Through the chair, so we also did discuss putting signs at the beginning of the dock walkway so that people are aware when they start the walk towards Lake Camp that dogs aren't allowed at Lake Camp.
Of course, it'll also be a situation that the hut holders may be fastidious in their control, but people that come up for the day or the weekend bring their dogs and they'll think they have a free roam.
We did get a lot of complaints, and we've had to really blitz that area with the contractor, and as you can imagine it's not easy because it's a long drive to get up there to the lakes, and they were generally people from out of town that had taken the dogs up there. But the hut holders certainly were very angry with people taking dogs up there.
Councillor Cameron?
I would like to talk to the Lake Clearwater submission. Am I out of order to do that yet, or shall I wait?
No, we're discussing.
We're discussing the supportive
Yes,
document, but I
yeah,
wanted to go to the non-supportive one. I also note that the submission this morning from the Howdens said that one of the sort of compromises they suggested was having dogs in their, enclosure, fenced in their hut, which I think. Who was it?
Yes, yep.
I'm pretty sure it was the Howdens who had a hut, yeah. And I also know one of the other submissions said that what we haven't discussed is that dogs are like family. People are very attached to their dogs. Not only do they want to take their dogs with them on holiday or away for the weekend, but they also look after their dogs, and we don't always have to go to the lowest common denominator. So I think that the compromise of having dog owners keeping their dogs well fenced and controlled within the confines of the perimeter of their own hut is a reasonable sort of solution. If that can be policed, or a licence can be gained, if someone's checked that the fence is secure and all the rest of it.
Even the home, some of them are house dogs in the...
That's right. And I personally, and not these people have not submitted, but I personally know people that go up there frequently, that it's very stressful for them trying to find someone to look after their dog or book it in. It takes away the impromptu nature of going up to their holiday home, and there's a lot of difficulty with that. So I think that was a sort of a reasonable solution. But I take your point with regards to consistency between doc and... Yeah. But I do think we should give some consideration to that.
Finished, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah, I agree with Carolyn that the Howdens did ask for in the huts only, or dogs on lead only, no free range dogs, and also asked about a trial for 2 years. And I'm not sure whether we can do a trial for 2 years and then review it for Lake Clearwater only. I'm not sure how we could.
Through you, Mr Chairman, you would need to review the bylaw.
The whole thing
Yep.
again.
Yep. And I think if you were of a mind to be doing this, you'd probably want to be talking to the hut holders first, because I think you'd be looking at a bit of a backlash.
Yeah, so we've had two different views here, and we haven't heard from the Hut Holders Association.
You have got a submission.
We've got the submission, but we haven't been able to ask them
No.
questions as to whether it's the whole hut holders that are agreeance, and it's not from what we've heard. So there's not it's a 50-50 or 70-30, we don't know. So I'm not sure how you progress it further.
I'm not really sure either. I'm thinking though that we are reviewing the animal control contract before long, but you would need to up the level of service if you were to do that, because we would be called up there all the time. So we'd have to look at that as well. But that's not an issue if you're prepared to pay for it.
Well, they will pay for it in their dog registration fees, no doubt. If we had up the level of service, everybody would have to, in the Ashburton district, would have to pay for it.
Correct.
And I don't think it's a decision we can sort of make here today, but we sort of need to. But I don't think we have enough information. So how can we progress it for Lake Clearwater only?
I think you would have to pause the whole exercise to enable us to go back and do separate consultations specifically with Lakes Clearwater and Camp, bearing in mind the other issues we're having with the water quality. And then we would have to bring it back to you again.
I don't know whether the council has a will to do that, but perhaps they do, but let's gauge it. Otherwise, yeah, otherwise it's otherwise.
Councillor McMillan?
I was just going to add that we've also got Lake Huron in the mix, because there's been a submission on people wanting to take dogs up to Lake Huron, and I was also just going to ask through the chair, ask Mel, and I can't see anything in the submission, but we've also got the Awa Awa Rata Reserve up in Methven, and there's always so much confusion about whether you can take your dog on a leash up there, and then of course some of that is dockland as well, so we might end up having to look at a lot of areas that have sort of connected with the dockland, maybe.
Councillor Rollinson?
Thank you. Much as I am a dog lover and I would want to take my dog too, I think the moment you let somebody who's a hut holder have a dog up there, they'll have the best of intentions, but they'll put it on a lead and take it for a walk, and then somebody who's not a hut holder will see it and think, oh wow, we can bring our dogs here, and I could see that leading to major issues. That's all I want to say.
Councillor Cameron?
I just would like to respond to that. I understand you're concerned, Diane, but I think it's disappointing that we think the least of it, we go to the bottom of the jar rather than the top. And I think most people would comply if they see that it's a privilege or a change and an opportunity, that they would comply. Regardless of that, we have people taking dogs up there and scaring the wildlife, and we need people going up. So I don't think that's a massive thing at the moment. And you mentioned, Mr Mayor, that is there a will of council to put it on the table and consult with Lake Camp and Lake Huron and Lake Clearwater? How do we do that?
Well, we would need to build that into our work program and put this on pause, basically, because we would also need to include DOC, because there are other statutory agencies that would probably want to have a say if they thought you were going to allow dogs up there, bearing in mind it's been many years since dogs have been allowed.
Councillor Mackay?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Question to you, Mr Chair. Are we in decision mode, or are we just viewing staff recommendations?
We're going through submissions. We're not actually making a decision at the moment, no. Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr Chair. Jane, question for you. Just this document you just gave me. map number 7 is Lake Camp and Clearwater, and it's completely a prohibited area. It's a completely prohibited area. It's always been for the last 10, 15 years.
It has been, and my understanding is that was conservation issues. It's a natural significant area in the district plan, bird life, etc., etc. Also conflict between all the boats, etc. Now you might also possibly get concerns expressed by other bodies because of the significant water degradation issues we've got in the lakes.
So it is prohibited for dogs on the moment as it stands.
Yes.
Leave it like that.
Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to ask, is it possible for, like, if we allowed dogs down the line into the Lake Clearwater village, to have people have each individual licence to be able to do that within the village?
Or we're really not resourced to manage something like that, and enforcement would be a major issue. We do get a lot of complaints already about people breaching the bylaw and taking dogs up there, which create a nuisance. So I don't think that would solve any of the issues.
Okay, it was just something, a piece of paper they could prove, you know, that they've been through a process to be able to have a dog within the village confines, that was all.
Well, that would be an awful lot of work, I'd have to say.
Well, councillors, do you want to make decisions as we go rather than go through all the submissions and then go back again? Councillor Cameron?
I would prefer to do that because I think the information is fresh in your head, and otherwise you've got to go back and review the maps and sort of, That would be but I don't know what other people should think.
At the moment, we're discussing and making a decision on whether dogs should be allowed or not allowed at Lake Camp and Lake Huron. Councillor Graham?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'm in favour of the bylaw as it stands on the moment. I hear all the stories about, we can put a lead around it and let them walk around. Fences there are no fences whatsoever. All the sections are basically open, so it's just getting something out of the sky. It has to be a rule, one rule for all, the same. You know, we can't say you can come because you've got a nice little wee doggy. My dog is a wee bit bigger, it's not allowed. I've got a big dog, love to take it out. If we go camping, we just put it in a nice free place here in Ashburton, and she's quite happy there for a week.
Councillor Cameron?
I have the opposing view. I think if the hut holder has a fence section, because bear in mind we have a situation where people are taking their dogs up anyway against the bylaw, like dogs are going up there regardless and running amok. I think if we have a fence section, and also bear in mind that people are very attached and love their dogs, and they have a right to, we have a right to take our family members away with this. If they can look after them and ensure that they don't run amok in the town and chase the birds, and they stay in the section, I think we should consider that. I also think we need to also understand that it costs a lot of money to put your dog in a kennel as well as an alternative, unless you want to just let the dog run amok around the streets. People in Ashburton, we have native birds that we look after down the river. People in Ashburton have dogs. I mean, there's a whole lot of other cases, and I think we should trust the dog owners, because I've come from a situation of no dogs, we should trust the dog owners to look after their dogs and keep them fenced within their confines of their hut. Thank you.
Councillor Latham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just could you just confirm through you, how long have dogs been banned at the Lake Clearwater Camp Hut settlement, just in round figures, round terms?
I've been here for 9.5 years, and certainly all of that time. I don't know how much longer. I suspect Bert might possibly know.
That will do. So we can say roughly 10 years anyway,
at least,
and possibly more.
Yeah.
The ban on dogs in that area, which has been enforced now for 10 years plus, was done for very good reasons. I can't see any anything that changes those reasons, so I would be in favour of continuing to have them banned.
Councillor McMillan?
I'd be in favour of keeping the bylaw as is, only, but if we could change, I'm trying to think of how we could do this, if we could change the bylaws so that dogs were only allowed within the hut area, so they weren't allowed on the shores, and I just don't see how that would actually, it's going to get too tricky, so we've either got to say, no, they're not allowed there at all, or yes, they are, but in just some areas. So in the end, I think keep it as it is. Yeah.
Mr Mayor?
The dogs have been banned up there for whatever years, and that's not being adhered to. The dogs are still ending up there. So,
Very few.
yeah, but there's some dogs getting there, from what we're hearing. I'd suggest that we allow the dogs on the fenced section only, and we give the Hut Holders Association to manage it. Dogs on a fenced section only. So if you've got a little dog that you want to take with you, he is not to leave the fenced section. If you don't have a fenced section, you don't take your dog.
Just through you, Mr Chair, the Hut Holders Association won't be able to, or willing, I don't think, to enforce that. They're opposed to having dogs there in the first place. So I think if you then tell them, you've got to go and do this, you're not going to get buy-in for that.
Well, we police it.
Councillor Lovett?
I support the bylaw, but I think I would like to see a change that dogs are only allowed in the village part of up there.
Councillor Braham? Last say.
I can't understand how you can put a bylaw in and then start taking parts out. You've got a big dog, no you can't. You've got not a fence section, you're not allowed. Oh, you've got a big one, but you've got a fence around it. You don't, you've got a pussycat. I mean, here we go. It's one for all, and that's it. Don't fluff about with the stuff. Make it easy to understand. No dogs or all dogs. And I say no dogs.
Yeah, no, we don't have a one for all. We have dangerous dogs. We have dogs that have got to be microchipped. There's all sorts of different rules for all sorts of different dogs. So we could have a rule up there that the dog stays on the section, the fenced section.
How many sections?
Even if it wasn't...
Well, if you haven't got a fenced section, you don't have a dog.
Even if it wasn't fenced, if it was kept inside the house, inside the batch, because that's what some people's dogs never go outside.
Keep it simple in the fenced section.
Well, we've reached a compromise. Councillor, hang on, who's... Councillor McMillan?
Can we put the dogs in the fenced off area or within the hut area for a limited time, for a year, to see if it actually works, and then...
I think once you have a bylaw, you have a bylaw,
yeah.
and it's either... Isn't that the way it works?
I think we're trying to please everyone, and it's really hard. And
Councillor Latham?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. Very briefly, I agree with Councillor Braham. We have one law or we don't, and we can pass all these other laws about you must have a fenced section and you must do this and you must do that. But how are we going to ensure that it gets done? You know what human nature is like just as well as I do, so I stick with the bylaw.
Councillor Mackay, last one to say.
So we're in decision mode?
Yes.
I second Councillor Braham's motion that the bylaw stays the same on this matter.
You're ready to vote now. Ready to vote? Right, all those in favour that we stick with the present prohibition of any dogs at Lakewood at Lake Camp. Please raise your hand.
Sorry, which lake?
No, Clearwater and Camp. All those in favour that we continue with the bylaw to prohibit any dogs at Clearwater, Clearwater and Camp. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Those against? 1, 2, 3. Therefore, the continuation of the prohibition. Thank you, councillors. I hope we.
Should we do the business, that?
Oh yes, right. We'll now go to while Mel has got the. We'll talk about the northeast area while we've got it on the screen. At the moment, we are going to make it permissible for dogs without the leash to be exercised in that area. Is that correct?
Yes.
Without a fence.
Yes.
Without a fence.
Yes, the dog exercise area.
Councillor Mackay?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a fundamental principle. Never mix people with unleashed dogs. I have found from experience that the little ones bite while the big ones are hugging you. So fundamental principle says, I think we got the bylaw wrong in the draft. I'll be voting for leashed only, unless it's fenced, but it's not going to be fenced, so it's leash only.
Councillor Brahm?
I like to see a dog park so they can run behind the fence and people can walk past without having little doggies spittle against the fence or their legs or cuddling them if they're the big ones. I know it might be costing some money, but if it is worth doing it, I would like to see a dog park.
Councillor Letham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In the draft document, map 3, showing that area of Company Road, Tates Road, is a bit different to what we've just been shown on the map. So what exactly are we voting on here?
Is there a later version of the...
Map 3 in the draft law starts at Company Road and runs through nearly to Tates Road, right up that side. The coloured area on map 3 in the draft document runs nearly to Tates Road, and it's just it's a rectangular block.
It's the side on the left. Yeah.
Could you run your tracer over? Does it go?
Through the chair, it looks, it's this area here. Sorry,
Yes.
that was my mistake before.
That there, I didn't think it was what you. Yeah.
Oh, so it's not the shibbly
Well,
bit on the right?
well, the bit on the draft document is the bit she's
That's
indicating
right,
now.
yeah.
So is that is the bit that we're talking about as a?
Yes, sorry, that was
That's
my
all right. Okay.
You finished, Roger?
Oh,
Councillor Rollinson?
Can I just clarify that on the map? So I was thinking it was this piece, but it's not, it's this strip in here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So I agree with Councillor Brown. I know it costs money for fences, but I think if we could find a way to get a fence around that, it would. I agree with the comments that much as there's a lot of dog lovers, there's people who love to exercise who are terrified of dogs. And if they have a great big dog, he may be friendly, but he's bounding towards them out of control. They're not going to be happy people. And if we could make it work and fence that, that's what I would like to see.
How many more do we make?
How many more?
Do we make?
Oh, parks.
Mm.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, one possible way forward would be to approve it as an unfenced dog exercise area in the meantime, and we can get some signage happening and what have you, and then my buddy in open spaces, Steve Fabish, could include budget provision in a future budget round where you'd then get the option of saying yes or no to the cost of fencing. That might be one possible way we could go forward.
Mr Mayor?
Can the area, which we first thought it was 8, without looking at the map on the consultation, it's the swale, it's the stormwater swale, isn't it? Could that stormwater swale be used as a dog exercise park when it's dry?
That's what we're proposing.
That's
That's
not,
part of
but
it.
It's not
That's
looking
just
at
part
the
of
map.
it. It's
What's the area to the right? that come down with the arrow?
Piece that I-
That bit, what's all that?
That over there, don't know.
It's a swale. It's a stormwater swale, I think. Collection, detention pond or whatever you call it.
Yes, yeah.
Which is different to what is on the consultation document. Could that be used? Because there's no path going through that. No one walks through that.
These photos might give you a better idea, but this is, that is all part of it, the swale, and all the area around the outside. That was in the consultation.
Yeah.
Sorry, we should have been able to have that up on the screen. We'll possibly made it a bit clearer for you.
Yeah, perhaps we do need to. It's,
Finish, Mr Mayor.
just not clear.
Councillor Cameron?
I had just got, this is not my question, but Diane, can you just run your finger around again where we're talking about, please? We're still talking about that little rectangle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right thing is the path.
What is the hectareage or acreage of that little bit there? 2 acres.
Hectare.
And one of the 2 hectares, did you say?
I've got no idea, I don't know.
Do you know how big that area is? No?
No, sorry.
No, that's fine, through the chair. One of our concerns from the submitters, and when you read it, that people are exercising in the area which is the proposed dog runoff and they feel unsafe because the dogs could come up to them or other dogs could jump on other dogs and damage them. And Angus mentioned dogs can come up to you and you might not be a dog person, but you're exercising in that area which is going to be. And then on the other hand, we're saying, well, we want to fence that area at some time in the future. So thereby we're prohibiting people to exercise in that area because it becomes a dog park. So, but what I'm saying is you're then preventing people from accessing their current exercise area where we're talking about people going now anyway without dogs. So I think that needs some consideration. We're removing access to 2 hectares, or give or take, or whatever it is, of land for people that apparently use it a lot for exercising. So I think we stick with the bylaw.
Which? Councillor McMillan?
I thought the advice from Jane was good, and that we have that as an exercise area going forward, and then look at the option of fencing. The area that beside it that the mayor's talking about with the sort of the looks like the roughage. I would have thought that a nice flat area would be better for dogs because then you can see where they are. Whereas if you've got, it's an old photo. Okay, smooth now. Okay. Right, so I would, my idea would be that we designate the left-hand side as a dog exercise area, which is the one in the map, on map 3, and then look at fencing possibly in the future.
Councillor Ronson?
I agree with that and with what Jane suggested, and I think to take us all forward, the best thing we could do as a council is get out there and have an on-site visit. It seems to solve a lot of issues sometimes.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I like Jane's comments there. Start with what we want to do with it. If it doesn't work, make it a dog park. They still can run in the same area, but it's away from people. It's away from dogs. If you don't want to put them in the park, we take our ones to the park. They've got great fun, but sometimes you keep them away. But at least they're safe there, or if you don't want to have them in, you can walk around it.
Only thing I will caution you, this looks to be quite a long area you're going to have to fence. It'll be quite expensive if it's going to be a tight wire fence to keep little dogs in or whatever. But Councillor, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah, I don't agree with Councillor Brown. It's a pathway through there. People will be walking through there. It's not a safe area for unleashed dogs. And if we fence it later, then that's fine. I'd think what Councillor Rawlinson's saying, we have a site visit and look at either that site or the other site, on the other side, which is the retention pond area, if that would be suitable. Because there's no one walking through that, there's no pathway through that. So a site visit would be good, I think, to give us the assurance by visualising that we are putting it in the right place.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, if you go and look at it, you might see why we got quite excited about it. The photos don't do it much justice, but it's actually a really beautiful area. And although it's not fenced, there's thick shrubbery and trees all around it. That was what sort of attracted us. Yes, dogs could still get through there, but a lot of them probably wouldn't bother. It's not the same as having it fenced, obviously, but you'll see what I mean if you
We're not seeing
look.
the vision.
No.
Councillor Cameron?
What worries me about that area, and why I'd like to look at the other area, is the adjacent area, is that it's got a footpath through there, and clearly from the submissions and from what we've seen, people use it for exercising. So if one day, which is a one day, we do fence it off, then we fenced off the footpath and we fenced off the area for people to exercise through it, unless they've got a dog and choose to run amok amongst the dogs. So I sort of support, I would like to look at an alternative proposal where people don't exercise so much through that area for the dogs.
I'd just say where we're at in these proceedings is you're not up to Argyle Park yet, but for many years you've had exactly this issue with very few problems at Argyle Park. You've got quite a big off-leash area for dogs, and you've got the pathway used by walkers, runners, cyclists, little kids on wee bikes. So this isn't any different.
Righto, decision time, councillors. Either we're going to prohibit dogs off leashes there, or we go with the staff recommendation that it become a dog exercise area. Is that?
Yes, the recommendation is that it's a dog exercise area that's unfenced, but what you could decide is run with that now, but we come back to you in a future budget round with options and prices for fencing.
Everybody happy with that?
Yes.
Right. Move on to the next decision.
Not happy.
Right, okay, we'll have a vote. Those that want to...
Before
Councillor
Before
Cameron?
we vote, can we just be careful what we, because we were only given two options there, yes or no, you know?
Either we go with the...
And we've had a third option proposed.
Well, the staff recommendation has sort of changed a bit now. Initially, it was a free-range
That's right.
dog exercise area. Our options are to stay with that, or to have prohibit any dogs without a leash.
Yeah.
Or the compromise, the third option is we allow free-range exercise area, but if there is a problem, we also take into account what it would cost to fence, and we end up fencing it and it becomes a dog exercise area. Would have to be off the path though, I think. You couldn't fence the path in the dog exercise area.
That's what I'm saying, yeah.
That's the way I understand it.
Yeah.
The swale would.
And with the, and also is it, which I would like, that if we do decide to fence it, or we do not decide, we cannot decide to fence it as well. Like, and decide to fence another area that may be more suitable further down the track if one is identified. Yeah.
Excluding the pathway if you go.
That's right, the swale where the flood water would sit.
Oh, maybe, that's right next door.
Yes. The trouble is we've got that many options, we're going to have 2 votes for each option, we're not going to get anywhere.
Oh, sorry.
Well, all those in...
I'd like to just progress Caroline's idea that if it needs to be fenced, then that other area is also looked at for fencing, either or. Yeah.
Yes, well, I'd have to talk to the property manager about that, because I certainly talked to him about this area to make sure he was okay with it, but I don't know what's earmarked for that there, so that's what we'd need to check.
Well, to make it simpler, either we continue with the staff recommendation that it become a dog exercise area with the criteria that we look at fencing to make sure it's perfectly safe for people that want to exercise their small dogs or do it without any danger to them or their dogs, or else we leave it that it's completely banned any dogs in that area without a leash. So that's, I think that's our two options. It'll either be dogs on leashes only, dogs as an exercise area without leashes, but we look at fencing as an option.
Ignore the look at fencing. We either go with the staff's recommendation or we don't.
Righto, that's what you want to do.
my opinion. And we can bring up any other matter later on in budget reviews.
Right.
In my opinion.
Right.
Can we? Or do we?
You can do whatever you like.
Righto, there's two options. Either we go with the staff recommendation that it be an unleashed dog exercised unfenced area, or we prohibit all dogs that are not on a leash.
Sorry, Stu, just with that bit there, that would just be, you're not going to have a dog exercise area because our bylaw is everywhere other than a dog exercise area or a dog park, you've got to have your dog on the lead. Yes. Do you see what I mean?
Yes, yep. Right, have you finished, Lane?
Yes, yep.
Right, first option, we continue the staff recommendation, it become a dog exercise area, no fencing, no leash in that area. All in favour of that we take that option as the staff have recommended, please raise their hands. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Those that want to, those against, that's right. So it must be 1, 2, 3.
I think
Before,
we dropped something off what we discussed before. I think we dropped something off what we talked before. We go with recommendation with the possibility, if it doesn't work, to put the dog park in. And the dog park is the safe one with the fence.
Put it on the agenda for next year.
How many dog parks do you want though? I mean, there's a lot of dog parks around. If somebody wants to let their dog run free, they don't have to use this area. There are other areas that it can be used.
There's only two. That is, one is washed out behind the new countdown, and the second one is in the old dump. So there's nothing at all on that side of town.
That is correct, other than Methven, but no, we do have other off-leash areas that are in that document that I there in the bylaw, existing ones. But with the main dog park next to the river, Ian Soper, the Open Spaces Manager, has given us an update on that, and it's probably going to take till the end of the year to fix it all because he's getting rid of some dead trees at the same time. But the other thing that he's going to do is make an area for little dogs and an area for big dogs, which is something people have asked for quite a bit. But you're right in that it is out of action at the moment, and it'll probably be December before they get that work done, depending on the weather.
Well, would you rather have a caveat that we approve the staff recommendation that it be an open exercise area? But
Could I raise a point of order, Mr.
Yes.
Chairman? We've already put this to the vote, that we accept the staff's recommendation, and it was carried 6-3. In my opinion, end of story, move on to the next item of business.
Right, I'll take your advice, Mr. Latham, Councillor Latham. We're on to submitters who do not submit.
So that's the staff recommendation.
Go back to the, yes, we've decided to go with the staff recommendation that it become a dog exercise area without leash. Right, bottom of page 6. Submitters who do not support the dog control bylaw policy as presented. I think we've discussed that pretty well because that's the next one of Lindsay Barnett and Megan McAtammany. Well, we know they are opposed to the North East. We've discussed that for the last half an hour and just made a decision. Submitters opposed to Ashton Beach being prohibited. Councillor Lovett?
I'd have to say we need to have another look at this. There is a bird breeding season, and I kind of think out of breeding season we need to let dogs down there. Dogs, you know, people like taking their dogs to a beach, and there has to be an area there that they can do it. That they go there anyway, and we need to kind of work in with them a little bit.
Can you not take your dogs down to Ashton Beach without
You can now.
taking them into the
You can
significant
now
natural
take
area?
them to the
Yeah,
beach.
At the moment, you
Yes.
can. This proposal was added by Bert Hoffman, who's unfortunately had to leave, but I think Steve Fabish may possibly want to comment.
Just through the chair, just on that point that was raised by the councillor, you just have to be careful about the public actually understanding when birds are breeding and when they're not breeding, and that confusion is quite difficult in these sort of situations. Even signage allowing dogs in that area when they're not breeding is not clear because of the birds don't adhere to what the sign says. So, and if there's confusion with dog owners, it just opens up a can of worms for that.
Of course, isn't the significant natural area all fenced off now?
Yes.
I mean, where the birds are?
Yep.
So thanks, Carolyn.
Yeah, it is fenced off down there. Eken's got a big piece fenced off, and there's a piece in the middle that the public can use. And I know farmers go down there with their jolly trucks, and you know, you go down the beach and have a look at what's going on, and there's always dogs on the trucks. But I actually think it comes down to educating the public, and we know we have birds up the river nesting, and we do an education campaign. And to me, at the same time, you can educate people that it is now the season that the beach is closed off for dogs, and it kind of makes people aware of what we have down there in a sanctuary. I think we just need to do a bit more public education, but there is times I think you've got to let people with their dogs down there, otherwise they'll just go.
Councillor McMillan?
Thank you. There is that big long report about all the birds that are there pretty much all the time. And the other thing is, it sounds like when we put signs up, they disappear. So I think this is probably the way to go.
Mr Mayor?
Is there other areas in the district where they can take their dogs to the beach?
Yeah.
Wakanui and Rangitata and...
Any other beach bar this one?
Yeah.
So this is the only one we're looking at prohibiting.
Yes, there are lots of entry to small roads to the beach. I know down Lowcliffe there are places you can get to the beach. But our beaches are different to a sandy beach all the same. I mean, the dog will have to run up and down on the shingle. Be a bit risky for him to be out in the surf, I think. Right, the decision is that we say no dogs allowed at Ashton Beach. Everybody happy? Right, next.
Just, Mr Chairman, could I just ask one question? Does this decision, and I'm sure the officers have checked it out, but does this decision affect any ECAN regulations for that area?
Not that I'm aware of. In fact, it aligns with their conservation area. That's why Bert recommended it in the first place, I think.
Thank you.
Councillor Brown, will you switch off for a second? Councillor Mackay might be able to answer it.
Ms Donaldson is absolutely correct. The National Policy Statement, I think, even alludes to it.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you. Just looking at page 7, open space, comment is there, the prohibited area does not apply to the whole Ashton Beach. It's looking on the map, it's only the spit. Is that correct? So if I'm coming down Lower Beach Road, where you normally park your cars, you can have a dog there. Is that correct?
I don't know.
That's
a short answer.
I would expect so.
Do you know Steve or not? you see the orange part? On the bottom part, you've got the lower beach road there. Yeah, what has been now, that's the part. That part there, that is basically the public part, isn't it? Yeah, so that is still open for dogs as well. It's only that.
Just through the chair, the councillor is correct. That area is not part of that restricted area.
Yeah.
It's only where the orange.
So it's only the ECAN part, the safe part.
And that's where the lizard survey
Yes.
is done.
Yeah.
Question, at the moment, you could park in that area where we park at
Yeah.
the bottom of the hill.
That's how I see it.
Take the dog out over here, and
Yeah.
the slips are here, and take the dog there, and that would remain that way? Am I correct?
Well, that's what the proposed size. If that's the case, I'm quite happy with it.
Right, I think we've made the decision there. Next submission was opposing prohibiting dogs at Lake Clearwater and Camp. We've made that decision. Argyle Park exercise area. Have you got a plan there, Mel? Please. Bottom of page 9. Lindsay Barnett, Robin Burgess, Carol Hall, Annette Hunt, Gavin Hunt, Sam Prince. I agree with the changes, which prohibits dogs on the sports field. Will this area be fenced, is it?
No.
No, it's an open.
Yes.
Now perhaps Jane can give us some information.
Yes, this is a very well used dog exercise area. It's not fenced, and it's got the walkways, well, down on the right hand side there. And the reason we are tinkering with this is it was pointed out to us by dog owners, in fact one of them was Ian Hyde, that it was a bit daft that you had to put your dog on a lead to cross over to the other side to then let your dog back off the lead. And so that's why we've proposed to add that link so that it makes more sense.
Councillor Latham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I use Argyle Park quite often when the weather's warm, and the current rules seem to work there very, very well. There's a mix and a mingle of people walking and biking and exercising dogs, so I'd be very much in favour of the recommendation here to add that proposed area.
Councillor Ronson?
Thank you, and I agree with those sentiments. There was a couple of submissions there asking about the Farm Road end of Argyle Park, and I've often wondered why we have never made, under the trees up there, is there a reason why we've never made that a dog exercise area?
Through the chair, yes. So we did look at this area, and the Open Spaces team advised us that that area is sometimes used for sports, and dogs are prohibited from sports fields, so we thought it was best to leave that area out.
So, sorry, I was meaning just under the trees up the top end there. There's quite a space between the road and the trees and then the sports fields. And I see people have asked if we would look at that in the submissions too. And I always think it's a far more suitable area than the piece along Middle Road, which is such a narrow strip, to be able to have them off the lead.
They were talking about frisbees and golf frisbee and other things that haven't yet been developed, and it was specifically that area that we asked them about that they didn't support. So that's why we didn't go there.
Okay.
But Bert's not here, so we can't.
Just through the chair, just a comment on Argyle Park. We are getting increased use of sport and recreation in that area, and I think with the development of the town even further out through that way, this park will be even higher usage. So I think what has been proposed by staff allows for the current users to be able to do what they can with their dogs, but not to restrict the recreation and sport opportunities on the park. It may be something that may be considered at the next review of the bylaw to see how the development has gone.
Councillor Brown?
I'm happy with the proposed exercise area.
Oh, sorry, Mr. Chief Executive.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also note that Farm Road in that first, or the western piece of Middle Road, I think Open Spaces team planted about 20,000 new daffodil bulbs through there in the last 2 years, and so it sort of feels on the ground like a different piece of pathway and immediate environments than the other pieces in green and indeed in orange. So that might be another subtle difference for the Farm Road path.
What the decision is, we can stick with what the recommendation. Dog registration tags, the bottom of page 9. Two submissions about the stiffness of the tags.
I'd like to comment on that because I registered my dog yesterday, got the tag, and this morning I thought I'll give it a go because I know it's hard to do. Put the jug on, and while I was putting the jug on, I managed to bend it and got it on super quick. So they're obviously they're not as bad as they used to be. It used to probably take me about a week to get them on last time. It took me 5 minutes, but I was speaking to Jane earlier and she had some ideas for sort of going forward.
It's perhaps not entirely relevant, but we've been watching with interest a trial that some councils are doing this year of a new round metal tag, and I was speaking to Selwyn District Council on Friday and they've been extremely impressed with it, and they're nothing fancy, they're just little round metal tags, but the idea is they stay with the dog for life, and so you haven't got thousands of plastic going to waste every year. And the other thing that happens is every year when we do dog registration, there's more and more people doing it online, which is fantastic. Then they've got to wait till you post the tag in the mail. We've got behind like we do every year, so then they're all ringing up to ask where their tag is. Whereas if you do it this way, the only tags you'd be sending out would be new dogs that have come in that year. So we'll be looking more closely at doing that for the next registration year.
How will they be connected to the dog? Is it?
They're more like the little old ones you had in the old days, little round metal one with the ring, and you attach it to the ring on the collar.
The other question, how are you going to tell once somebody's got a ring in the collar, how are you going to tell if they've registered or not? Because the dog will look as if, unless you have a different coloured sticker on it or something, it'll always look like it's registered.
You check the microchip.
Mm.
Right, everybody,
sorry,
Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to say, when they do those metal tags, just make sure that they do stay on, because I know we have lost them in the past, but we're not going to be sending out with the dog tags a suggestion that they actually put them in hot water first.
We did.
Oh, you did?
Yeah, we did.
Okay.
Yep.
Well, everybody in favour of that? At the moment, it is the plastic tags until with management look at an alternative for possible metal tags. Everybody happy? Dog fouling? All you can do is hopefully people, it's when somebody's exercising their dog and has no obvious way of retrieving what the dog leaves behind, that's when it, all we can do is, if somebody's seen to ignore what the dog has left, what do you do? As a general public, you don't like to go and approach them. And Councillor Brown's big enough, he can, but...
Can I just ask a question? So at the dog parks you have a dispenser for the bags and a bin. Would you then also put one, I don't know, is there one at Argyle Park, and would you also put one at the new exercise area so they're there? That's great.
Yep. The one thing we can't really provide is water, because it's just really expensive, because the council's got a bylaw about each site has to have its own connection, and that's I paid very, very, very dearly for that one at Methven. We don't have the budget for that.
Comments of people that were either for or against or just didn't state a preference. how do we handle that? They sort of on both, some of them are both sides, commented on some things are good and some things are bad, so they sort of ended up in a no. Next one is dogs on leashes.
I just wanted to comment, sorry, the new signs that are up in some of the domains and reserves saying that dogs must be on leashes on sports fields are excellent. We've had quite a few put up around the Methven domain and they look really, really good. So more of those the better probably.
Top of page 12, prohibited areas from South Island Fish and Game. Len Dole, Charlotte Hoare. Talking about Ashton Beach. Hokanui Beach. They want that prohibited too. What's the ruling, do you know, Steve, is regarding Wakanui Beach? I think.
So what was the question? Are they allowed at Wakanui
Yes.
Beach? Yes, they are. Yep.
No comments there. Exercise areas. Like to see more dog parks. Fencing at Malcolm Street. Malcolm Street is quite a big area. It's that's between the railway line and Malcolm Street. I think, is it a designated dog exercise area? People.
It is. It's an off leash area.
Off-leash
Yes, that's
area.
right.
Yep.
Yep.
That rate, I don't really think it needs to be. It's a long, what would it be, K down there to fence, and you're sort of overcoming the parks and reserves outlook of open spaces there if we put a fence there.
Seems to work the way it is.
We stick with the status quo. Another comment about dog fouling.
Noted.
Ashburton Domain. Signage.
I've made a note just to have a look at the issue of signage. From what I've seen in the domain, I don't know that it would matter how big the signs were. There are some people just have no intention of putting their dog on the lead.
That'll bring us to the end of. Have you got enough information to?
Yes,
Mel?
thank you. You all right, Mel? Yep.
Thanks,
Yes.
councillors. Now we'll go to open spaces.
I'll just switch
Oh,
places.
sorry, Councillor Latham.
Just very briefly with the Ashburton domain, have we had any real problems in the domain with dogs? Can anyone answer that?
I probably could. I walk down there quite often because it's close to home, and you do see a lot of people letting the dogs off leash, including on the sports fields. But we do patrol it, but I'm not aware that we have many incidents or actual complaints of people being. Do we, Rick? You never know.
Councillor Ronson.
My comment was about signage, so Jane, you've said you've noted it, so obviously from Megan McAtamney's comments, there's no signs or very few left out at the business park.
Yeah, well, we've got a problem there because, as Rhonda said to me, we just don't have the budget to keep replacing the signs every week when somebody steals them. So I honestly do not know what the answer is to that. Pardon? Shotgun. Might be a wee bit radical.
Okay, thanks.
Councillor Lovett.
I was just going to ask, down the avenue side of the domain, there's a lot of passing by people stop there and let their dogs out. I've seen it happen onto the park. Is there any signage along there by the swimming pool when they park up there to tell them they can't let dogs off?
I'm pretty sure there is a sign there.
So I
but
haven't seen one along that
I'll have a look.
It's just
you
by the
mean where the public
toilets.
toilets are in the little paddling pool, that area?
Yes,
Yeah.
and along there, just wondering, is there signage right there? Because that's where they're parking up and
Yeah.
letting the dogs out.
Yeah, I'll have a
We'll
look.
look at that.
Yep.
Mr Mayor?
Do we have some advice on the signs that are being stolen, and are they the right signs if they keep getting stolen repeatedly, or what's going on? Because, are they the right sign?
The reason they're stealing them is because they think that part of the business estate should be where you can do what you like. That's why they keep taking the signs away.
So we need to make bigger, different. Change the sign somehow so they can't steal them.
An electrified sign, perhaps?
If you keep doing the same old thing, you're going to get the same old thing.
Well,
So perhaps in that area they need to be changed to something different, higher, stronger, electrified.
Right, everybody finished with that? We'll now go to open spaces, bylaw and policy. Summary, yes. Welcome, Steve. That's page 5. Hang on, that's... If we go back and look at page 3, it gives you an idea of the proportion that's supported and people that didn't support and the neutral. Right. First one, Ashburton Youth Council. Quite a comprehensive submission. Any comments from councillors? Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. A lot of that goes into the domain development plan that we went out for consultation, and so it's similar stuff that we kind of agreed on through that. Is that correct?
Through the chair, I might have to hand that over to Steve because I'm not completely familiar with that.
Just through the chair, councillor, you are correct, but I think where they've put their lens over it is just from a youth point of view, and it's given a different perspective to it. But
Good. Very good submission.
Yes, they've added an outdoor stage, which we have got one in the domain, haven't we? Yes. As far as children under 10 roaming the domain, that's...
Don't worry.
Is that a council thing or a... Yeah. Councillor Lovett?
I was just going to ask about the art wall. Is there something like that in the domain plan? Because I don't think there is. Is there? Because I'd actually like to see some of their ideas come through, like the art wall and a publicly notice board, because these guys, they all put in on the town centre, and none of their thoughts have actually come through on that. And I think if we want to keep youth involved with their decision making, we need to kind of really do something to support them.
just through the chair to answer that, there are notice boards dotted throughout the through the domain now for public notices on what's happening in the domain. In the long-term plan, you might recall that there was money put aside for an arts trail within the domain, but I think that's pushed out a few years. But there's certainly one there, including arts, I think heritage and botanical. So.
Next submission, freedom camping, lack of control, Bev Skatesy and Maxine Watson. They sort of said they were concerned about lack of control, but then they said we have to be careful and provide freedom camping. They sort of were two ways, weren't they? I don't think we have major problems with freedom campers in this district. The next submission.
Can I comment there?
Oh, Councillor Rawlinson.
Thank you. I just see regarding the freedom camping that Mrs. Skates noted an issue with campers on Park Street next to the domain. So are they going in along the end of Park Street round the corner to where we walk over the bridge to the cricket field? Is that where they're parking at night? Does anyone know? Just was something that I wasn't aware of freedom campers parking on the street. And are they allowed to?
They are allowed.
So they can.
Yep. Through you, Mr Chairman, yes, they are allowed to do that. Most of them have got self-contained vehicles, so we haven't actually had much of a problem at all in this district with freedom camping. But the other thing, I don't know whether it got put into the feedback on this, but the government is reviewing the rules around freedom camping anyway, and I think they're probably going to be going down that path of you must have a fully certified self-contained van, not just put a sticker on the back of an old car saying that you are.
That's right. I see the freedom campers, it's a bit like the dog owners. There's good ones and there's not so good ones. Thank you.
And in fact, Mr Chairman, I would note that the term is now responsible camping. So the term freedom camping is no longer the definition of parking up. It's now about responsible camping. So it's trying to reinforce the self-contained vehicles, the people that do everything right, rather than the sort of implication that these are a problem. Some are, of course, but many aren't.
Mr Mayor?
Do we do any policing of responsible campers? Is it in our brief?
Through you, Mr Chairman, no we don't, because we don't have a bylaw. However, sometimes we have gone and talked to people that have been parked on a street for too long and complaints have come in about neighbours, and we do get them to move on. Generally, Rick works on the 3-day rule, which is just a rule we've made up, but he said that's how long it takes to fill your holding tank, which is as sensible as anything.
Right, next was Ian and Maxine Watson. They were pretty comprehensive submissions and covered a lot of ground. The top of their submission about access through open spaces, and as far as their speed limits go, I think it's imperative we do have some sort of speed limit like a Rangitata Mouth. Young people on four-wheelers can hoon around, but I'm sure in an emergency if somebody did 40k or 50k, nobody's going to protest in emergency situations. Covered a lot of ground. I see ownership of water. Well, we all know that the council doesn't own the water. Any councillors got comments about their submission or what we should or should not change? What about access over council land? I think people just do it as common sense. Councillor Latham?
Thank you, Mr Chairman. I wasn't quite sure what the submitter was referring to when he said he crossed council land and ECAN land and dock land and whatnot. I understand his concern, but I was wondering whether they were getting confused between ECAN regulated areas and open spaces areas that are controlled by the district council. So I take on board what they're saying, and it was very comprehensive, and yeah.
Before Lane, Steve will give us an outlook, a bit of a summary of the council's position on some of those submissions.
Okay, thank you, Mr Chairman. Look, just to clarify to council, under the definitions what an open space is, and it's an area of land or water that's owned or managed by council for the public for the purpose of recreation or amenity or enjoyment of people. So it's land that we possibly don't own, but we have control over it. And it's, of course, land that we do own. The water is actually referring to probably modified watercourses more so, like the lakelets, the domain ponds, stock water races. It's not referring to public waterways under the jurisdiction of other bodies. So I just wanted to clarify it's for that reason. And the bylaw, remember, is put in place to try and stop unsavoury behaviour or stop the enjoyment of other people enjoying those sites. So a lot of the points that they raised were valid, but I think there might have been some confusion around that definition.
Councillor Brahm?
Yeah, if you look at the policy, it states 4.2 that clears quite a bit as well, I reckon. I think they've been mixing things together. Yeah, so I'm quite happy the way it is. I don't think we have to do much about it because it's all there.
Councillor Mackay?
Hi, thank you, Mr. Chair. I listened to Steve's definition very closely, and I was very pleased that council still has control of the puddle that has a pothole in it. Gratified to know.
Any more comments about that submission? Mark Gleeson, Maps, Open Spaces. There are, Steve?
I'll just bring that up again. So through you, Mr. Chairman, I think the maps that were being referred to might be the maps in the open spaces strategy, which is due for renewing again. So again, go back to that definition. It is any land that is under council control for the purpose of recreation and enjoyment. And as you know, as subdivisions come on, land is used sometimes for that recreational purpose and has been added to all the time. So. There were no maps included in the consultation document. I think the reference probably was to the open spaces strategy.
No comment. Mark Gleeson's comment about enforcement of bylaws. What is he saying? That if we have bylaws, they are to be legally. Bylaws are different to policies. Bylaws are something that we are there to be obeyed. A policy is hopefully that they will encourage to obey it. Staff reply. Everybody happy? Mark Gleeson again, consultation. Questioning where we've gone to genuine consultation with Ngāi Tahu. As the explanation is, we regularly, Aoraki Environmental Consultancy, I know Tony, and they consult with them every 6 weeks or so. Aircraft noise. Councillor Mackay.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I do not recommend that Mr. Gleeson walks along the Queen's Chain along our coast. Most of it is about 100 metres to 200 metres out to sea.
Yeah. It's a bit of an anomaly, isn't it, Queen's Chain? Because some of our rivers is actually privately owned to the centre of the river. Right, aircraft noise. One submitter. Any comments? I think, does the council control the noise on the ground but not in the air? Is that what it's saying?
Yeah.
How do I read that?
I think that's true, isn't it? The CAA is...
Yeah, sorry, I haven't got it in front of me. What is that exactly? The aircraft
The submission
noise?
is complaining about aircraft noise, but Properties replied that activities on the ground at the airport, we can do something about that. But as far as airplanes in the air, how can the council control airplane noise in the air?
We can't. Yeah, that's CAA.
Councillor Lovett?
I think he's speaking on hundreds of people in this town when we had the skydivers in that noisy plane because it was irritating. I think that's probably his grievance.
Councillor Brahm?
I think it's fixed because skydiving Kiwi is not here anymore.
Councillor Latham?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Do we know where the submitter actually lives? Well, and the reason I ask that is because many times we get I've had in the past complaints about the noise at the airport, and yet the airport was there and operating before these people actually moved in. So I sympathise with people who do not like consistent aircraft noise, but sometimes they should do a wee bit more research before they move there. Now, this submitter may live somewhere else, so I'm not accusing him of anything like that.
16 kilometres away, they say in their submission.
It says he enjoys planes flying over, but he doesn't like the skydiving planes. Any more comments? That's our final submission. Mel, we've made enough decisions?
Through the chair, just for clarification, are councillors happy with the draft as it stands? Or would you like to
Councillor
make
Mackay?
changes?
I'll move that we accept the draft as it is.
Comments?
That's fine. I was going to second it, but the elderly men come.
Councillor Mackay, seconded Councillor Latham. No comments, all in favour, please say aye. Contrary, carried. Thank you, councillors. Be the end of submissions and decisions. I'll declare this part of the meeting closed.